Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365 after the Philadelphia Eagles get a big win on Sunday Night Football out in L.A. They win 37-20. It's their seventh straight win, and they moved to 9-2 on the year, and they did it on the back of Saquon Barkley, who had a historic night. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Monday morning, my man? This Birds team is cooking, John.
Yeah, the goalpost. Do you know Andrew Perloff?
I know the name.
He said, now it's changed, Super Bowl or bust. I'm like, now it's changed. Where have you been? It's always been Super Bowl or bust. But I guess because of the historic nature, as you mentioned, of Saquon Barkley's game, I don't know. It's always been Super Bowl or bust here, to the point that the expectations have been ludicrous until last night, when, you have the Eagles have been around for a while, 92 years. This is the 92nd year. So 9 decades is a big sample size. They've never had a game like that. And that's because there's only been 9 of them in NFL history. So, yeah, that was special. Dominated that defensive front. I thought, I mentioned on the pregame show, I mentioned last week, styles make fights. Eagles' big, physical, bruising offensive line against the Rams. Everybody caught up in the numbers, the statistics. The Rams are pretty good on the front. Yeah, they are. They're also undersized and small and susceptible to getting pushed on by really big, really physical people. And that's what happened last night. And Saquon took advantage. First play in the second half. It's always the second half. First play. Bang, 70 yards. Landon Dickerson gets a 2-for-1. Jordan Mailata, also a big part of that. And then late in the game, when they were desperate, they don't know what they're doing. They got everybody up trying to stop the Philadelphia Eagles because they don't know what to do. And one block, Mekhi Becton, and bang, he's off to the races. It's they haven't had this home run ability ever. So you add that. Jalen Hurts had a great quote. I'll try to pull it up at some point. Basically about adding
momentum. That was a great quote by Jalen Hurts.
Well, he says that all the time, but he was talking about Saquon specifically. The momentum, he's absolutely right. Like, that's made up. I mean, it starts in it. The best example of that is baseball. The old adage in baseball is you're only as good as the next day's starting pitcher. Like, you can have all the momentum of the world, and you got a guy who can't pitch the next day, you're cooked. Momentum's, one of those made up things that can, and Jalen says it all the time. It can start on any play, it can stop on any play. That's up to you specifically. But he had a great quote about Saquon that, if you add issue to a bunch of other issues, you got a problem. And that's what the Eagles have done. That's what Howard Roseman has done. He added an issue to a bunch of other issues. And, the Rams were the first team all year who just, it all clicked against, and they didn't know what to do. Their heads were spinning. They didn't know what to do. Literally, they didn't know what to do. And
John, they just completely out physical that team. I mean, you brought it up. The lines played amazing. Now, the one thing that had me in bed last night after I closed up on the post game show around 3:30. I couldn't stop thinking about Brandon Graham, John. As excited as I was about Saquon. I mean, one, you lose not only do you lose a key piece of the team, but most teams that lose a 36-year-old, it's not that big of a deal. You lose a guy like that.
No, it's definitely not.
Unbelievable right now. He's getting a big share of snaps. He's productive. I mean, I think I forget what his stat line was last night. I know he had an incredible sack on third down that looked like he was a 26-year-old on that play, John, that was shot out of a cannon. And now it seems he might be out for the year. That's at least what he said after the game, and I think he's obviously knows his body well enough at this stage to know what happened there. But what do you make of that loss, John? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I guess there's, Nick didn't want to talk about it after the game because obviously, sometimes players think they're hurt really badly and sometimes they're not. That happened to
Yeah.
Britton Covey when he was a rookie. I remember he was telling everybody and then it was a break. But he was back pretty quickly. So you never know, but yeah, I wouldn't count on it. And it's probably going to be a torn triceps. And I happened to write last week, the one position the Eagles can't afford an injury because they already have an injury is edge rusher. And the worst thing that can happen to a team is multiple injuries at the same position. And unfortunately, they now have multiple issues at the same position. And you are down. Remember, I think a lot of people don't understand. There's no more trading. Trade deadline's over. You can pick up somebody off the street. And I'm sure there's some veterans out there that have big names, but they're not playing for a reason. And on the roster, you're down to Nolan Smith being a starter, which I'm not sure you want. Josh Sweat obviously hurt his ankle in the game or something on his right leg, but he came back, so that's good. And then Alex Hunt, and then a couple practice squad players, and that's it. To the point you might have to get inventive. I mentioned it last night on the post-game show. Maybe Milton Williams has to play outside more. He's a versatile player.
Yeah.
Not a traditional edge rusher, but he's a good football player, and maybe that's all you want at this point.
I wonder if they'll play Jordan Davis in more of a 3 technique, or will Jalen Carter potentially rush? I mean, I just don't know what they're going to do. Like when you're down to 2 guys on the edge, and Sweat, we talk about Sweat all the time and his drop off last year because of how much he played. I mean, I don't see the rotation out there. As excited as I was about last game, I couldn't help think about that, and I still don't know what they're going to do, John.
No, and a lot of people are. I think Jalen Carter's so effective inside. I don't think they want to mess with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
To say he'll never take an outside rep. He does on occasion now, but it's very rare. I don't think they want to mess with that. Maybe you have to amp up Jordan Davis's work in the 4-man fronts.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because you have to kick Milton out. Maybe that's the way you go. That I could see, and but it's difficult. And hopefully, the Eagles talked about getting Bryce Huff back late in the season. Hopefully that works out well. That could be a help, but that's down the road a little bit. And again, this is no longer about the NFC East. The NFC East is wrapped up. This is about getting the number 1 seed in the conference, because that's such a big advantage now with only one team that gets the bye. And that's what the Eagles are shooting for.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they're Bird Gang puts it in the chat. Next man up. The problem is, dang.
Yeah, well, the problem is
there's no next man.
Yeah, it's easy to say that, but to assume you're gonna look at the way Brandon played in that game. To assume you're going to get that level of production from the next man up is silly. You've already been through it with, AJ for 3 games this season. Next man up, hopefully you don't have to go through with Saquon. Because Kenny Gainwell's having a good year as a backup, but, he's not Saquon. So you can say next man up all you want. Grant Calcaterra did a nice job stepping up for Dallas Goedert this year. Not the same. Same with Fred Johnson. Nice job. Not the same. And now you have multiple injuries at that particular position. So it's a concern, where you can pretend it isn't, but it is a concern. And Jalen's quote, by the way, on Saquon Barkley, when you accompany an issue with other issues, you become a problem, is the quote, which I thought was a great quote.
That is a good quote. That's a Jalen Hurtsism.
Yeah.
Right? It sounds like a Jalen Hurts quote. Well, he's right too. And I want to speak to this. Speaking of the historic night for Saquon, I do want to talk about it. John, he had 26 carries, for 255 yards on the ground. He had 4 catches for 47 yards receiving, good for 302 total yards, and he had 270-plus yard touchdowns. And now in the last 2 games, John, here's a stat from Adam Schefter this morning. Barkley has 500 scrimmage yards in the last 2 games, joining Hall of Famers Walter Payton and Ollie Matson as the only players in NFL history to record 500 scrimmage yards over a 2-game span. That man is playing special right now, John McMullen.
Yeah, he is. And it's all the second half. It's amazing. I remember talking about the halftime. Like, he was good in the first half of this
Yeah, I think
game.
he had like 13 for 72 in the first half. So
Yeah,
he's doing good,
like,
but nothing.
Which is
nothing
really
heavy.
good, but
Yeah.
typically, and that's better than what he has been. He's usually at 4. I know coming into the game, he was at 4.5 yards per carry in the first half and then explodes in the second half. It was almost comical. I mentioned it. 13 for 73. So really good first half. Don't get me wrong. It was evident. First offensive play of the third quarter, bang, 70 yards. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad, by the way, Nick brought this up, and I'm glad he did, because everybody, and Saquon, as you mentioned, deserves all his flowers, and he might be the MVP. That's where Dan Silly and I disagree. When you have a season like this, MVP is about stats, and he's, as you just mentioned, he's doing things that haven't been done for a long time.
Yeah.
So that gets noticed and stuff like that. But the Eagles' goal is the Super Bowl. I think everybody realizes that. Everybody knows that. And boy, I can't say enough about this offensive line. I just can't. They're always, somehow Jason Kelsey was able to overcome the relative anonymousness of what the offensive line usually goes through. He's become a legitimate celebrity, maybe the first one ever. But this offensive line is just unbelievable. So what Nick said, what everyone's going to look at today and talk about is Saquon's 255 yards. But that offensive line is where it started. And then it's the same thing on defense with the defensive line. That's what we talked about. They dominated up front on both sides of the football. That's why they won that football game. But Saquon deserves all his flowers. He's right now, today, if they took that vote, whatever it is, November 25th, he's the MVP of the NFL.
I think he's right there too.
But that offensive line is the key to it all. The key to it all. And I hope people realize, because I always say, I'm trying to elevate the conversation on this show. I'm not trying to, look at the shiny bauble. It was phenomenal. Phenomenal. But this offensive line is consistently great. And it has been for a long time with Jeff Stoutland running the show.
There's no doubt they are the reason that Barkley is running wild. But, John, you got to give credit to him, too, because holy shit, man, can he hit a hole? Have we ever had a running back this good or this impactful, John? I mean, look, we've had a good offensive line.
No, they've never had the home run threat of this, because what he does, they've always been able, like I say, he gets 70 and 72-yard touchdowns. That might be a 40. The second one might be a 40-yard run for an average, not average.
I don't even know about that. He bounced outside on that run. He juked right around that second level, man. He was he is explosive.
Most running back, again, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, these are massive holes. Like,
I know, but come on, John. We've had good running backs here in Philly, but we've never seen a running back explode like this.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders, Miles might go 45 yards with that. He takes it to the house. DeAndre might go 35, 40 yards. He takes it to the house. That's the difference. And that's a big difference. remember when he was a little bit banged up or whatever, Kenny goes 13 yards right up the middle for a touchdown. I mean, that's like, I mean, these guys are, in the week before, same thing. Where he had the 3 runs where it was like 14, 15 yards. These guys, again, on the 70-yard touchdown, watch Landon Dickerson's block when you get a chance. Watch it. He got a 2-for-1. He Kelsey'd it. And Jordan Mailata also was a big part of that as well. On the second block, it was Mekhi Becton. These guys are unbelievable. Unbelievable. The week before, it was Cam Jurgens getting the 2-for-1. You remember that block? These guys are special. And so is Saquon. But I hope people realize it's both parts of the equation.
Yeah, it's a deadly combination. You put Saquon Barkley at his skill set, he's drinking from the fountain of youth too. He's running 21 miles an hour on these touchdowns.
And he's probably motivated to show the Giants they were wrong, and all that kind of stuff factors into it. He's happier, he's winning games. All that human nature factors into it. Right now, he's the MVP of the NFL, but the most important part of the Philadelphia Eagles remains that offensive line.
Yeah, he's up over 1,600 yards from scrimmage, John, in 11 games.
1,650 is where I had him.
1,650 is where you had him.
He's only got 6 games to beat it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's safe to say he's going to beat it. And he get to 2,000? I think he will. And we'll be giving away a couple more jerseys. It is a jersey giveaway. So for those who are joining, I think we got a new member this morning. Pile Driver Outdoors. I like that. Big fish in the pick. Thanks for becoming a member, brother. Appreciate that. So we will be giving away a Saquon Barkley jersey on tomorrow's edition of Birds 365. I always do it on Tuesdays after the Sunday game. So we will be giving away the jersey tomorrow. A massive night for Saquon Barkley. John, I do want to ask also, we mentioned Brandon Graham already. We mentioned the defense a little bit. I want to mention something about Jalen Hurts, and I saw this last night, and in a way, I think it encapsulated how I've felt about Jalen Hurts in the last couple of weeks, and I'll read it off to you exactly as I saw it. And this is from a guy on Twitter. I don't know who it is. I think it might have just went viral, and I saw it. But Jalen Hurts, his performance, he tweets out, aside from Barkley, Jalen learning how to be a game manager is the best thing to happen to this offense, and I don't mean that as a slight either. And I think it's a good point, John, because we talk about all the time how much of a playmaker Jalen Hurts is and how much he's been that his entire career. When a play breaks down, he scrambles, he does things. I think he's really learning how sometimes you can sit back in this offense and let Saquon go or let AJ go or let the offensive line work. And I think he's learned how to do that in a big way. Really efficient night for him last night. I think he was 15 of 22. 15 to 22 for 179. He's playing really efficient football right now, QB1, John. What'd you think of Jalen Hurts last night?
Yeah, I mean, again, the first half, I think there's stuff to clean up, but the ability to make something out of nothing and break sort of the backs of the defense when you think, all right, we got this, and then they lose contain, and he's running for a first down, and then it's woe was me, and they start, putting their heads down a little bit. That's what he's doing most effectively. I'm not one, which I used to have that argument with Jody all the time. Game manager to me is not an insult. I don't consider him a game manager.
No, I don't think overall he is, but don't you think he's learned kind of how to be that at times? And it's hard for him.
No, I kind of disagree from the traditional, and again, it depends on everybody's definition, but from the traditional way people describe a game manager, like Brock Purdy that's where Jody would get mad at me. I'd say he's a game manager. And that's what he is. He's a point guard. And that's what a lot of traditional quarterbacks were back in the day. That was the whole design of the position. He doesn't play it like that. Not even close. I mean, that's one of my biggest problems. And still, part of it is you don't know who to blame. They're still running these long developing routes. There's nothing quick. When they did do something to AJ Brown, it worked as it usually does. But I don't see that consistently. What he does and what he's thinking about it, I don't think it's managing the game. It's, the Rams, ironically, because their whole offense is built on testing the discipline of the opposing defense. Their defense was incredibly undisciplined all night, and they couldn't keep him in the pocket. He'd escape the pocket and get an easy first down, running the football. That to me is not game managing. That's just taking advantage of a undisciplined defense. The game managing stuff, to me, again, my definition is, all right, it's 3rd and 5. Run the slant, get the football out of your hands quickly, move the chains. That to me is more of the point guard traditional game managing.
Yeah, I do think from Jalen Hurts' style of play, though, normally he's such that playmaker. I think he's done a nice job this year. Obviously, in the last 7 games on this win streak, his attempts through the air have come down drastically. He's not throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game. He's way down. And I think it's okay. I think it works right now. And this Eagles team is out-physicaling people, John. I mean, can they out-physical their way to a Super Bowl? I think they might be able to, dude. No team seems to be able to hang with this Eagles.
Well, we're going to learn. We're going to learn a lot.
Quarters.
We're going to learn a lot this week because Baltimore's a physical team, and they are. It's not bullshit. They're not. I'm not going to walk in here on Monday if the Eagles beat them up and say they're not physical, because they're physical. Down the road, unless somebody knocks them off before the Eagles get to them, Detroit's really physical. So there's going to be people. Right now they're Mike Tyson in his prime against, bunch of tomato cans. It's going to be Mike Tyson against Evander Holyfield at some point. And are they going to be biting off ears, or are they going to be able to stand toe to toe? It's easy to beat on the weakest kid in high school. But if the other bully stands up to the bully, that's when you learn.
Yeah. Well,
but I'll say this. The Eagles are a bully, man. They're a bully. And there's only a matter if another bully can step up and deal with them.
And we'll see if that bully is as big and bad as our bully. I think the Eagles have that in the bag. We will get to a commercial break, and we'll get to Jeff Kerr. I do want to read a couple super chats, John, before we do that. By the way, Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway, so get your memberships in now. Appreciate everybody for being here. And Martine checks in. Good morning, Z and John. Question about the corner rotation. When Slay goes down, Rodgers comes in. I thought Ringo was the better fit last night, given how physical Kupp and Puka are. How come no Ringo over Rodgers? John, what's your response to that?
Because Ringo has been too handsy, gets called for a bunch of penalties, and they're more comfortable with Rodgers. So until he proves he can play. Great special teams player, by the way. Great gunner.
Yeah, and the way the refs were calling PI last night.
Yeah, that's not a Kaylee Ringo game.
Yeah.
Too handsy. And Rodgers has played well in the times past. He didn't play great last night, but he's played well when he's got an opportunity to take some snaps because of Slay getting banged up. So there was no reason to look at Ringo at this point. But why he's ahead of him is because Ringo was too handsy and he was, susceptible to get too many penalties.
Yeah, I thought that pass interference call on Isaiah Rodgers got in his head a little bit. You could almost visibly see it on his face that he was pissed off.
That was a bad call. Yeah,
it was a terrible call, and I think he knew that. And then he knew how much it cost the team. And then the very next play got burned for the touchdown. And then the next drive, they came right back at him. I think it was a 4th and 3, and they went right at Puka Nacua for 31 yards on 4th and 3.
Yeah, Puka's tough to deal with. Puka, it's bad when a wide receiver is your most physical player, but that's what the Rams are. Puka
Nacua. Did you see the one play that I think it was the play that Zach Bond broke up the pass to Puka Nacua?
Yeah.
But he tried to come up through the offense. I don't know what gap that was. It was more toward the right side. of the offensive line towards his right tackle, but he tried to come up through the middle of the offensive line on that play on fourth down.
Oh, I
Third down.
didn't see the release. I
Oh
didn't.
yeah, you got to
I'll have
watch.
to
He got jammed
'cause
up
he
in there.
does that.
It didn't work so easy.
Well, yeah, I mentioned that. I said if he does that, the Eagles better be ready for it.
Yeah, well they were.
Yeah, I didn't see the release. I'll have to recheck that. But he's
Yeah,
a
I
really
believe it was on the play that Zach Bond batted it away. It was a slant. It was
that makes sense
it was
because
a mesh route right across the middle.
typically he's going to get that. So he's a really good player.
Yeah, he's an excellent player, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. I think he's, like I said last night, he's highly rated. I think he's still a little underrated in this league. He's an excellent receiver. Brian Garner checks in. Heard you guys last night. AJ is more important because he makes defenses play honest. The only time teams sell out to stop Barkley is in the 4-minute drill. I feel bad for BG. Vic has to work some magic. Brian, thank you for the super chat, my man. Point well taken there on AJ and Saquon. John, your response to Brian.
Well, they're both important. I just, we got caught up in that. Look, the guy is the MVP, and we're going to bring on Jeff Kerr. And thanks for getting up early, but yeah, the guy's the MVP of the NFL right now. But if you're asking me who, you've seen the Eagles offense without AJ Brown. AJ Brown's the best pure football player on the Eagles. That doesn't change. Saquon would admit that. Everybody admits that.
I think it changes on a year-to-year basis. I think it's Saquon this
Well,
year.
of course it changes. It's fluid. But no, I'm saying because guys get old, guys don't stay at their current standard. He's at his current standard. My definition, again, everything's about definition. Who performs their job the best? Because always, if you're talking about impact, the most impactful player on the Eagles is Jalen Hurts for obvious reasons. Every quarterback in every NFL city, whether they're Patrick Mahomes down to whoever you think the word Tommy DeVito would be the worst. That's a fucking joke that he plays, but they're the most important player on that team. Every single one. So it depends on your Saquon's having the best season. Who's the best pure football player on the Philadelphia Eagles? It's AJ Brown.
Good stuff there. Let's keep rolling real quick. 2 more super chats. Then we'll get to Jeff Kerr. James Carver checks in. James, good to see you, brother. Thank you. For the man, no myth, only legend. BG, now praying that it's God enables him to play for a 16th year and or he returns in the Super Bowl. Wow, that would be a crazy story. Brace and all. We'll see what ends up happening there. James Carver. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And BG is, without a doubt, a legend, especially here in Philly. Philly Don says, morning, guys. They can still use Bond off the edge and play Trotter at middle linebacker.
Come on, guys. Stop. Zach Bond's been one of the best off-ball linebackers in the NFL. Him. You're not moving Zach Bond. He's not. Here we go.
Well, I think people are wondering what
he might rush a little bit more. I mean, the guy is playing at an all-pro level. And you think because he's playing at an all-pro level, by the way, they lucked half-ass into that. And he's playing at an all-pro level and you want to move him? No. You got to figure it out. It's got to be Jalix Hunt. It's got to be Josh Sweat playing more, unfortunately. Maybe you move Milton Williams more outside. You got to figure it out. Zach Bond's an all-pro off-ball linebacker at this stage of the season. You don't move him. My God, this team hasn't had a good linebacker playing 92 years. I'm exaggerating.
Point understood. I'll get to a couple more super chats after the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Kerr, joining us in just a second here. Let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Before I get Jeff Kerr up, you see the promo code on your screen. Everybody use it. It's YouTube 150. It gives you 150% sign-up bonus on that very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit. So go now to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. And use that promo code YouTube150 and get your Saquon Barkley prop bets in because, man, they seem to be hitting every single week. Good stuff from BetUS. Let's go to Jeff Kerr joining us now here on Birds 365. Jeff, welcome to the show, man. That's a Penn State alum, Saquon Barkley Day, Jeff.
Big
I
Jeff
know you
Kerr
enjoyed
Day,
watching
man.
that.
Historic performance. And by the way, I'm also going to throw in Jeff Kerr. Thank God Penn State has James Franklin, because James Franklin, what brass you know what on James Franklin
Yeah.
to beat the Minnesota Golden Gophers and save the season. I never hear any love for James Franklin.
Yeah,
So-
it's funny because the Penn State cult that everybody likes to joke about, they act like Joe Paterno won 10 games every year. He did in the 70s. But this is the first time Penn State has won 10-plus games in 3 straight seasons since 1980 through 1982. So Joe wasn't doing that in my lifetime. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Jeff, what'd you think of Saquon Barkley last night, man? 302 yards, 255 on the ground, 270-plus yard touchdowns. Just insane what he is doing right now for this football team. What'd you make of it last night?
For anybody that wanted to listen to me over the last 7-8 years when I was harping on get Saquon Barkley on a real football team and you'll see what he does, this is me patting myself on the back.
That's correct, Jeff. You deserve credit for that.
Yeah, that is the whole. I've had people tell me, nobody here, but I've had people tell me he's not going to make that much of a difference. He's not as good as you think he is. I'm like, you watch the New York Giants play football like I do, you'll understand what type of difference he makes. I mean, the guy, Saquon Barkley, has 500 yards from scrimmage over his last 2 games. The last person to do that was Walter Payton in 1977. I think that was the best game I've ever seen from a running back since Adrian Peterson had 296 in his rookie year. And I didn't think anybody was going to come close to putting up numbers like that. Saquon did it. He's the first running back to have 300 scrimmage yards in the game since that Adrian Peterson game. And there's John, you were at that game.
Yeah, the 296, and very similar situation where you need a bunch of long runs, and obviously Saquon got the 2 70-yard runs, and the other team is generally beaten to a pulp by the offensive line, and that's as good. And look, I say it all the time. Adrian Peterson is the best combination of power and speed and running ability. He did that jump cut because before Saquon did, but this is the closest I've seen to Adrian physically. And Saquon's actually a better receiver than Adrian was, and he's a better pass protector than Adrian was. So as an all-around player, he's actually better. As a pure runner, I'd still lead Adrian a little bit, but he's impressive physically. I mean, when he hits the hole, and there's some massive holes, and again, I give all the credit to this offensive line, but he's gone. And that's the difference between him and a Miles Sanders, or Miles might get 40, might get 30 in his prime. DeAndre Swift might get 30. He gets 72.
It's insane. Just the 70-yard touchdown run to start the second half. When I saw the A gap open up, I'm like, okay, well, Saquon's going to get at least 20 on this play. Then he does the jump cut, and you're like, okay, he's gone. And I think this is why the Eagles made Mekhi Becton a right guard. I think this is why
he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I think this is it. I think they knew what they had in Saquon Barkley and said, you know what, we got to put the 5 best linemen on the field. It does not matter. We'll teach this guy how to play guard. We don't care if it's left or right. And he got that trial by fire in minicamp when Landon Dickerson got hurt. And they said, okay, he could do this. What's going to happen when we get Dickerson back? And Tyler Steen opened the door. And look, I think Saquon could do this with Tyler Steen too. But when you're running behind Cam Jurgens, who's been playing unbelievably these last couple weeks, Mekhi Becton, Lane Johnson, you got that. Oh, by the way, now you got Jordan Mailata back. So you got Jordan. You got Landon Dickerson. Like, Saquon Barkley behind this offensive line, it really is. It's a cheat code, John.
Yeah, it's been impressive to say the least. And I'm the first to raise my hand. I didn't think it would be this good.
I almost texted you last night. I was going to joke with you. I'm like, and by the way, John, Saquon Barkley already has 1,600
I
scrimmage
know.
yards.
Well, by the way, everybody makes fun of that prediction. Nobody went higher than me besides Ed.
I know, but it's not that. That's
top
not
five in
what
Eagles
people are stuck on.
history.
People are stuck on the other stuff you said, John.
Well, the other stuff was what? That he's not as well-rounded as Christian McCaffrey as a pass
Good, not
receiver?
great. I think that's what I think about. I mean, good, not great is he's clearly great, man.
Which is still a fair evaluation if you look at the Giants. And
exactly. I mean,
you know,
I had 6 years of a sample size.
Honestly, for Eagles fans, like instead of directing your attention towards someone like John, direct your attention at the Giants beat writers who were all on me last week saying, "Oh, you know, we're better without him. We're better running the football without him." I said, "Okay, Saquon Barkley has more rushing yards than the Giants. He has more rushing yards.
He had more total yards than the Rams last night.
Yeah.
By himself.
He had more total yards than the Giants football team yesterday.
I saw that.
Jeff,
for me, he has eclipsed A.J. Brown, I think, as the most talented player on this team. John does not like that take. What say you?
Eagles are 8-0 when A.J. Brown's on the field.
I think it's 9-0, right?
Yeah.
No, it's
8-0.
Yeah, it's 8-0.
I mean, we already have proof of what they are without A.J. Brown.
Yeah,
and by the way, Saquon was out there. You know,
I just think A.J. Brown opens up so much for Saquon because you have to defend A.J. Brown. If you put 8 in the box to stop Saquon, A.J. Brown's going to get 200 off you. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, Saquon was it. Now, Saquon, it doesn't even matter because Saquon is very humble. That's one of the things about him I love, by the way, is humility. I tried to compliment him last week on his pass protection. He basically said he sucked. I'm like, he's the only guy who can pass protect. It's like a lost art in the NFL, but he's so humble. Like he doesn't want the accolades. He doesn't want people telling him how great he is. So I don't even like he says AJ's, most people say AJ's the best player on the Eagles. Some of it's self-deprecation, I'm sure, but Nick's pretty firm on that. He's called him the best players he ever coached.
Honestly,
and he's been around for a while.
Saquon will never want this out, but I think he gets his own vindication when the Eagles win football games. I think that's all that matters to him.
Oh yeah, and I think part of it is I do think he's motivated by the Giants. No question.
They all are. All these former Giants are motivated. Whether it's Saquon, by the way, they all had good games yesterday. Saquon, Leonard Williams, Julian Love. Like the Giants allowed talented players to walk or gave up on talented players.
Yeah. Well, the Giants are a terrible organization. But even if you want to go back, by the way, again, maybe self-deprecation, maybe not. When Nick was trolling the Giants fan, we got your best player. Saquon was the first to say, well, Dexter Lawrence is the best player on the Giants. And he's right. I mean, I'm just saying that's why when I say I try to elevate the conversation. I mean, there's better players in the world. Patrick Mahomes exists. Lamar Jackson exists. TJ Watt exists. You're going to see 2 of them over the next couple of weeks. Miles Garrett. Miles Garrett's on a bad football team. He exists.
I can't wait for Sunday, by the way.
I try to elevate the conversation.
I can't wait to see Lamar and Derrick Henry live. I can't wait for that, and I can't wait to see how Jalen and Saquon counter that. Sunday's going to be a fun day in Baltimore.
Yeah, no doubt.
That is going to be a fun match.
Jeff, Birds are now winners of 7 straight. They're 9-2 on the year. But, Jeff, they lost Brandon Graham last night, who was not playing like your typical 36-year-old does in the NFL. That dude was playing at a high level, and he was playing at a pretty high rate. The Birds are now low at edge rusher position. The war of attrition here this is when it really matters most, Jeff. People talk about that all the time, war of attrition in the NFL. Well, now's when it really counts. How do you see the Eagles handling the loss of Brandon Graham? Do you think some players could move around? What do you see right now the Eagles doing to make up for that loss?
I mean, I could see Milton Williams play the edge more. I think you're going to have to see Jordan Davis play on third downs more. But if you want my honest opinion, I think they got to sign somebody. they're going to have to sign somebody for depth. Like right now, you got Josh Sweat. You can move Milton Williams on the edge. I mean, Bryce Huff's out. You got Josh Sweat. You got Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt. Is Jalix ready for this? Probably not. John, do you know Yannick Ngakoue is available?
No,
I thought he got claimed.
So yeah, he got claimed by the Patriots, I think maybe.
I know. I thought he got.
By the way, he can't play a lick. You don't want.
No, he can't. But you know what I mean. Like
I think that's everybody that's out there right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't everybody that's out there right now can't really play a lick?
He did get claimed by the Patriots.
Yeah,
I thought, but he.
I mean, look at the guys on their practice squad. Like, if you can name the Eagles.
Sean Mathis, baby.
Sean Mathis, yep. If you can name them.
Good guy. I talked to him last week in the locker room.
Is David Anaya still there?
No, he got cut for O'Shawn Mathis. Teron Jackson is back. So they might.
Yeah, so he'll be the elevation.
Yeah, Teron Jackson. Because he's played for the team, he knows. They're in trouble on the edge, and we'll see. Right now, though, they're playing a style of football where, again, they're bullying people. The question is, can you bully the bully? We're going to get the first indication of that this week, as you mentioned, Jeff.
There are 3 teams in the NFL that I think just bully people, and 2 of them are going to play this week, and the other one plays at Ford Field.
Yep. And that's a very small sample size. But as I don't want to pick on him, but I just saw it, and I'm not picking on him. I don't know him, but Andrew Perloff, so he's got a show, I think.
McMullen.
McMullen. And he said, basically, and half of it's shtick. Obviously, he's playing a character, as most morning shows, if he's on, do. But now it's Super Bowl or bust for the Eagles. What the hell was it before?
Yeah, wasn't it like that the whole season? Like I feel like they're the top 2 teams in the NFC is Super Bowl or bust, and that's Detroit and Philly.
Yeah, I mean that's why everybody was so disappointed early when they were 2-2. Everybody was losing their mind because it was Super Bowl or bust.
They were talking about that on one of the national morning shows this morning. It might have been NFL Network. I forget when I turned on the TV. And they were talking about the Eagles are Super Bowl contender, and one of the guys said,
like,
"So
really?
when weren't they a Super Bowl contender?"
Yeah.
It's just are we just starting to realize how good they are? Maybe
I'm mystified but it tells you what one performance. Like, this sport is so unique because you get the highs are so high, and the lows are so lows.
I'm actually writing a piece today. It's going to upset Chiefs fans, but recent history points this out. The Chiefs have won 8. They've won 8 one-score games in their first 11 games. The last 2 teams that have done that, last year's Eagles, we know how they ended up. And remember, the Eagles were 10-1, just like the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And the 2022 Vikings. And we know how they ended up. They lost the playoff game to the freaking Giants.
Daniel Jones. That's the reason the Giants paid Daniel Jones all that money.
I have, and Saquon knows this.
Yeah.
I've talked to him. I've talked to plenty of former Giants that are on the Eagles, by the way. I said the Giants' biggest mistake was not
believing that game meant something.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that franchise is content with losing by 31 points in a divisional playoff game. I saw the Eagles get destroyed 25 years ago in a playoff game to the Giants, and they said that's not good enough. We got smoked by this team 3 times in a year. It's not going to happen again. It never happened again. It never did. And that's
I always say, Jeff, the hardest thing for front offices is to be honest with themselves.
Yep.
And like, if you beat an Ed Donatel defense, Ed hasn't coached in the league again.
Yeah.
Ed
Donatel's the 26th defensive coordinator, by the way.
Yeah. And that defense was historically bad. But since we're bringing up defense and Ed Donatel, ironically, he was a Big Fangio guy. You got all these Big Fangio guys. Sean Desai, Nolan Smith was out there giving him a big hug yesterday. We get all these Vic Fangio guys, but nobody runs it like Vic Fangio.
Yeah, we saw last year Sean Desai. No one runs it like. By the way, John, we were talking about this in the CBS Slack room last night. A lot of people were busting my chops after Saquon had a second touchdown run. I put out the question at halftime: who's the MVP of the Eagles? Is it Saquon or is it Vic Fangio? And everybody goes, "You actually are going to put this up to debate?" And I was putting up a bunch of Eagles defensive stats from this year compared to last year. Saquon has that run. They go, "You want to take that back?" I'm like, I don't know, because the Eagles have a top 5 defense.
I would. They can make the argument they have the best defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
I was talking yesterday. I'm like, if people say I understated Saquon's impact on the Eagles, which I certainly did.
I understated Vic.
My far bigger understatement was Vic Fangio. I said the ceiling was 15-16, middle of the road. The ceiling.
Yeah, that's how I said to Don Bell and Pat Allen yesterday on Sunday kickoff before my segment. And then I said during my segment, I said I thought they'd be. I said they were a top 15 defense. They would go 13-4. I said now they're a top 5 defense. So now how many wins are they going to get?
And you couple that with a running game like they have right now, a top 5 defense, and I think I'm more closer to John. I think it's top 3 right now. It might even be top 1 when you look at the stats.
If you go by the stats, it's top 3.
Yeah, so I mean, right there, plus a running game, plus the physical nature of this football team. I mean, they submit every team they play against. Teams just can't hang in there with the Eagles.
By the way, the quarterback has top 5 passing numbers during this winning streak, and he's got top 7 passing numbers for the season.
Jeff, I said this earlier on the show. I said that I'm curious to hear your take on this because, I think part of what makes Jalen Hurts such an electric player is that he's been able to he's such a playmaker, right? He makes plays when plays break down. He's just got that innate playmaker ability. I think he's learned how to be a game manager this year. And maybe that's not the perfect word, game manager, but I just mean in a sense of
nothing wrong
he doesn't
with
have to do it all the time. You got great players around you. He's playing efficient football. Collinsworth gave a stat last night about how many turnover-worthy plays he's had in the last 7 games. Newsflash, it's not many. He's not putting the ball in harm's way.
That's why they're winning. He's not turning the football. That's why they're winning. Remember, Zander, we were going off after the Bucs game. Like, that was the biggest issue with this team. He was turning the football. He has 2 turnovers in his last 7 games.
7 games, yep.
And you could argue one was a great play by Trayvon Diggs. Like, he's had, the way he's playing right now, the Eagles are damn tough to beat because he just doesn't. Like, on that 3rd and 5, he rolls out. Does he hold on the ball too long? Yes, but there's a reason for that. Because he's a running quarterback.
Right.
And running quarterbacks make plays. Patrick Mahomes can hold on to the ball too long, too. He sprinted for the first down, kept the drive alive. That's what you want to see out of this guy. If he takes a sack, so be it. I'd rather see him do that than throw a pick.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, until the 2023 season, had always been a good ball security quarterback, always. So I thought there would be a regression back to the mean, and there has been. And you're right. If the Eagles don't shoot themselves in the foot, they're very difficult to beat. You go even in the first half when it was 13-7, they kept the Rams in the game longer than they needed to be. And that's, the second red zone drive, they had a legal man downfield. They had a offside, which you never see.
Penalties that were declined, by the way. Yeah.
And then you had an illegal motion on Dallas Goedert. Like they shot themselves in the foot to keep the Rams in the game. And then nobody talked about it. Nobody brought it up. This is why they need me out there, because I'll bring up the shittiest moments, even in the biggest wins. What the hell was Nick Sirianni doing up at the end of halftime? What the hell was that? Like that, if you're in a close
moment, no.
What is going on there? You get a sack on 2nd down. There's about 1:15 left. You get a sack.
You let the clock run.
And then I'm like, that's fine. If you want to go into halftime, I'm cool with that. But they let the clock run. Then the Rams ran like a draw or something, get 8 yards. Then they call timeout. And there's
then they
33
get the
seconds
ball.
left.
Yeah. How about when it was 4th down? And I'm like, I'm just scratching my head at this point. I'm like, look, I had no problem with the decision. But
No.
whenever Kellen Moore called, I'm like, what is
Are we sure
this?
that was Kellen Moore? Was that like what was that? That was you talking about the quarterback draw where he just snapped it and he raised it 7
Yeah.
seconds on the clock. I don't know.
Yeah,
What the
like
hell
were
that
they
was.
just trying to kill 7 seconds? Was that like the thing?
And
Well,
if you're
That
trying
was
to
not
kill
a great way
7
to kill 7
seconds,
seconds.
yeah, just run around for 2 seconds and heave it downfield, a Hail Mary. What I mean, that was, again, it doesn't matter and people forget about it. That's what bothers me. Like, people complain about 4th and 3s or 4th and 2s or taking an extra yard on a tush push because it doesn't work. And you have a legitimate, like, what the hell are you doing moment at the end of the half, really, too. And it's not a concern because you win the game. That's the stuff you got to worry about. Because if you do that against a good team, it might beat you in the, it might bite you in the ass.
You know what's crazy, John? Nick Sirianni. It wasn't a loophole, by the way. It just shows how inefficient the officials were at multiple times.
Well, it should be a loophole, and they should change that today.
Yeah, I mean, Nick just finding a way. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can't change something you already declined, but he did, and I'm like, congrats to Nick. That was the turning point in the football game.
That was weird how that played
I
out.
was like, wait, you can do that? I'm like, as someone who coaches another sport, I'd love to find a way to do that. I'd be telling the head coach, change it.
Yeah, right. I mean, you do that all the time if you could.
Well,
if you could
first, yeah, but here's my
have a
problem with
second
that.
crack at it.
First of all, it is a loophole, and it's like Belichick when he did the formational trick against Baltimore. They'll close it in season. That's how stupid that
They
is.
might close it this week.
Yeah, they'll close it because you can't do that. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. But number one, even if you want to believe that he took advantage of it, what in Nick Sirianni's mind did you think even originally they weren't going to go for that on 4th and 3 at that stage of the game rather than back it up to 3rd and 13? I mean, there's not even a 1% chance they're not going for that. So what's all the rigmarole for? Just take the penalty.
By the way, John,
I'm not giving them credit for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, this is another interesting part of this game, too. Just knowing, I know a couple of the Rams beat writers pretty well. And a lot of the editors of the blog sites that were at that game last night. I had a couple texts, this before Saquon said the second one. They're like, we're not surprised he's doing this. Like, the Rams have a terrible run defense. They have guys that can't tackle. I think they said they had like 17 missed tackles or something last night. And I said, well, the Eagles, they said, well, that's what we're saying. The Rams just aren't on the Eagles level. Like, they just can't beat a football team like this.
Yeah, they out physical teams, Jeff. That's what it comes down to. The Rams couldn't tackle him last night. They couldn't tackle Saquon. And they couldn't tackle A.J. Brown. That's what it comes down to.
The crazy part is, like, this is a good, like, I still think the Rams are a good football team when their guys are on the field. Like, it's kind of like when, you put Saquon on the field, you put A.J. Brown on the field, you put Lane Johnson on the field. Eagles are going to be very tough to beat. Just like the Rams are with Cooper, Puka, and Kyron Williams, who, by the way, the Eagles shut down Kyron Williams last night.
Yeah, they did. 2 fumbles, too. That was a big play early in the game because the Rams were moving the football early.
Yeah.
They had, I think it was 130 yards in the first quarter. And then they
had
had
first two drives.
Yeah.
And then Vic said, all right, I got a beat on this broad.
The Eagles held the Rams to negative 1.7 yards per play in the second quarter.
How many times did he run that same waggle bootleg?
The same play. Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. This guy is the most overrated fucking coach in the history of football.
So you don't like his clones either?
No, I don't like his clones. Well, part of it. Don't get me wrong. The problem is there's only about 5 Vic Fangios, and you play that way. You get so repetitive with Vic Fangio, you're cooked. That's easy for him, and that's why he's owned them forever, and will continue to own them.
Well, that's why Vic is such high regard because everybody's trended toward Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell, all these guys are looking to find these guys. The Bobby Swan. Look at Houston. How much Houston's offense is stagnated this year, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why
they're so repetitive.
Yeah.
They're so repetitive.
You know what? That's why Ben Johnson gets so much love around the NFL. I swear the Lions run a different offense every week. Every week they find something different to run.
Yeah.
I'm watching their game against the Colts yesterday. I'm like, I don't think I've seen that play before. I don't think I've seen I've seen the formation.
Because I'll ask Eagles fans. Because motion was the big thing. You just saw the king of motion. Did that look like a creative offense to Eagles fans?
No.
It didn't last night.
It is.
Is the Miami Dolphins offense creative? No.
No. That's one, reason for my 17th concussion. Motion is creative. No, it's not. The guy runs the same shit over and over, and Vic's got a beat on it by the third drive.
I forget who it was last night. It was before the game. It might have even been Collinsworth said, not like the Eagles are highly creative, but they got guys that make it work. And then at the end of the day, players make plays. And I know people don't like Chris Collinsworth, but at the end of the day, he's right. Players make the plays.
No, he is.
No, 100%. It's players first. Players,
and he would know. He was a damn good football player.
And by the way, Nick Sirianni says that all the time. Players over plays. Scheme.
It's always the players. It's always the players. Like
speaking of players, guys, is Jalix Hunt ready for the task that is now set before him to be a contributor off the edge as a first-year player at Houston Christian University? Jalix Hunt, are you ready for the moment? What say you, Jeff Kerr?
It's going to have to be. It doesn't matter. It's going to have to be.
But it's interesting because we had a super chatter before, Jeff, saying, well, you can move Zach Bond to the edge and play
God,
Trotter.
no. Why would you want to do that?
And play Trotter. What the hell's wrong with Jalix? Jalix Hunt's the 3rd round pick. Yeah, Trotter's the 5th round pick. What, because his name is Trotter?
This is why you draft Jalix Hunt over Peyton Wilson, right? This is why you do it. This is how you justify yourself.
Is there any Howie moves left? Is there anybody out there, Jeff? You're a stat guy. You know more. Is there anybody out there that this team could bring in that would be?
Well, that's the thing. I gotta look at it. Remember, I'm on like 6 hours of sleep here, Zan.
Yeah.
6. That's
remember last year when Vic was in Miami and they lost Jalen Phillips and Andrew Van Ginkel at the end of the season. Do you remember who they brought in, Jeff? They brought in guys off the street.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember who they brought now. I remember they were desperate last year.
Yeah, it did not work.
Didn't they bring in
It did not work.
It wasn't Emmanuel Ogbah, was it?
It might have been. They brought in a couple guys straight off the street. I'll try to look it up in one of the breaks.
I mean, honestly, you're better off just going with Jalix.
Yeah, you are.
And
you're better
Jackson.
off. Toronto. Yeah, you're better off. You are. It did not work out. I mean, those are really good players, Jalen Phillips and Andrew.
I tweeted this last night, and a lot of Eagles fans definitely agree with me on Milton Williams is going to make some big money this offseason.
Yeah.
Guess
He's
what?
Playing
now,
really good.
That's the guy. That's the guy you moved
himself, man. Bet on. That's what people are talking. We've been talking about the Zach Bond extension. Why would you not bet on yourself if you're Zach Bond?
No one else is going to bet on you, so you might as well bet on yourself.
Yeah. Milton bet on himself, and look how that's working out.
I mean, it's working out. It's working out in the interior, but can he rush the passer like we would need him to in that outside role?
I don't think so, but he can give you competent snaps. He's not an edge rusher, so he's not going to rush like an edge rusher.
I mean, you're going to see more Moro Jomo and Thomas Booker too. By the way, I felt bad for Thomas Booker last night. I didn't think he had bad penetration on that one touchdown run.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of it's garbage time.
What about Jordan Davis? What do you got? You guys think he'll be able to handle if they play him in a 3 technique and a more 4-man front, more traditional DT role, so they can slide Milton outside? Do you think he can handle that? I mean, they're going to have to get creative, and I trust Vic Fangio to get creative because I think he's earned the trust of me and everybody else in Philly so far this year. But boy, it's gonna be an uphill battle for sure when you look at the bodies in the roster.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think, Zander. Like we're talking about this, like just how much of an impact Brandon Graham was on the field for this
I
football
know.
team. I would not have expected this at age 36.
Well, and all of a sudden now the Bryce Huff thing matters even that much more because I know Bryce Huff wasn't playing good, but now you just need body. I mean, you need somebody to take up some snaps.
And I
even if
think
they're
it's
not
going to be
entirely productive.
Vic is a lot like Jim Schwartz, and he will come up with stuff you don't even think about. But I if I were a betting man, I'd say Milton gets more work outside. And that means Jordan's got to play more in those 4-man fronts. And
but by the way, John, it's like you said, like we said with Jalen Humphrey for 3rd round, Jordan Davis first round pick. It's time to show up.
Yeah. Well, I think he does well in his role, but now he's got to expand his role.
Yeah. But again, that's why you were picked in the 1st round.
Yeah.
You're more than just a one-trick pony.
And Jalen Hunt as well. Maybe Jalen Hunt is, you throw him into the deep end of the pool. That's what they did with Cooper. They said, all right, fuck it. We're going to throw him in there.
They did with Quignon in training camp. They said,
yeah,
you're playing the slot, kid. Okay.
Yeah.
No warning.
Why is it that Jordan did? And John, you would know this better. Jeff, you too, from being down there. But when I look at like some of Jordan Davis's traits, and not to be like a combine guy, but most nose tackles don't run like that. Like I would think I know he's a big dude, but I would think he would be pretty good in a traditional DT role. Why does he struggle at that role and he's better as a nose? Just because he's just the sheer size of him, or because he's pretty athletic? I mean, he moves good for a big man.
Yeah, well, he moves very well. That's the reason why. I remember talking to Dama. Dama would say he could be an edge rusher. I'm like, no. There's more to being an edge rusher than just athleticism. There's a lot of handwork. There's a lot of technique. You see some of these spin moves.
I think conditioning really affected him too early in his career.
What affected him?
Conditioning.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. He's not used to playing a lot with Georgia. Nobody is, because they generally are blowing out half their schedule. So then you got to get to the NFL.
They have 6 deep on the D line who are 5-star recruits.
And then Jalen Carter deserves a lot of credit because he's playing a boatload of snaps, and he's been playing at a high level and improved his conditioning. With Jalen, I think it's just that he's not Jordan. It's not as he's just not effective as a pass rusher, and he's a run down defender. But
it's like what we talked about last week, John. We thought he was going to be a Lodi Nada. That's what the Eagles thought when they drafted.
Yeah, that type of player, and he hasn't reached quite that level, but he's been fine. But the problem is he was the 13th overall pick, so more is expected, and more will be needed. But the guy's got to be Jalen Hunt. The guy's got to be Jalen. And remember, even if Jalen Hunt plays well, you still need a 4th because they have multiple injuries.
That's what I'm concerned about. Who's behind Jalen Hunt?
It's not just a one-man replacement. I mean, you got Huff gone, Graham gone.
That's why I said,
remember what happened to Josh Sweat last year when Josh Sweat played too many snaps. Well, now he's going to have to play that much more snaps, and we're getting late.
And he got banged up yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
So we're going to have to see the injury report this week with Josh Sweat as well.
By the way, you're going to get beat up next week when you play Baltimore because they beat everybody up.
Yeah, there a lot of good things happened last night in Los Angeles for the Eagles. One really bad thing happened, and that's Brandon's injury.
Honestly, when Brandon went on last night and was just talking, I'm like, wow, that just dampens everything with this football team right now. It's like, it's like the Eagles won, but your grandpa died.
It's so true, Jeff. John broke it on our postgame show last night. The whole mood of the show changed. I'm like, what? Brandon Graham's out for the year, and after. By the way, I mean, he played a great game last night before he got hurt. He was, I mean, that 3rd down sack, he looked like a 26-year-old shot out of a cannon coming around the edge. Matthew Stafford didn't even see him coming. He didn't even expect the pressure yet.
On such a big night for him, too. Like,
he played.
When you beat Clyde Simmons for third all time
I know.
in franchise history. And that's Clyde freaking Simmons here. The guy led the NFL in sacks twice with this team. He was Reggie White's right-hand man. Like,
Yeah.
that it's insane. By the way, so many Eagles
fans,
fans,
he's Mr. Eagle. He beat Bednarik. He's played more games than anybody else.
Only
and if
played
this
for
is
2
the
hours.
end,
Yeah.
what an end, because he played one of his best games of the year.
I said, people ask me, to you, what's the greatest play in Eagles history? I'm like, Brandon Graham forced the football of Tom Brady.
Yeah.
This is not a debate. It's funny how the Eagles might have had 3 of their 5 greatest plays in franchise history in one game.
Yep.
And the other, by the way, the other 2 are in championship games. Steve Van Buren's touchdown run, no one ever talks about. It's one of the NFL's ever greatest play. Everybody goes, "What's so great about the 1-yard touchdown run?" Well, I'm like, it wasn't a 1-yard touchdown run. It was like a 3-yard touchdown. And it was in the driving snow, 7-0 against Chicago. The only score in
most people don't go back to Steve Van Buren.
But then, but Chuck McNarick tackling Paul Hornung on the final play, going, "This game is effing over." That's the other one. Because if he doesn't tackle Hornung at 36, Packers win. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the Super. I still think that the biggest play in the Super Bowl, maybe not that,
Zach
obviously.
4th down catch.
Yep. That's the biggest play, because they lose the game if they don't go for it. They lose the game. Never mind converted.
By the way, Nick Foles had so many clutch throws in that game. By far the most clutch he had. Oh, and by the way, he threaded 2 defenders and threw a touchdown to a running back in that game.
Jeff,
I've never seen it.
Jeff, good stuff, man. Happy to get you on after Saquon Barkley goes off. You've been tooting the Saquon horn for many years.
Saquon, baby. Saquon. Boy.
Yeah, John, I do have to ask you, what did you think of Coach James Franklin's performance? Boy, he's got some balls, man.
I'm not even joking, because as Jeff knows, I tend to joke with the Penn State people. But I think I've always said to you, Jeff, they're completely wrong about James Franklin. He's a good recruiter. That's what college coaches are. They're not coaches, they're recruit. That's how they win. They win by recruiting the best talent. And he's a great recruiter. And B, like, if he's not aggressive in that game, they lose to the Gophers, and
they lose and they're out.
You got to win the big one, though, Jeff. James has got to win the big one.
Well, they do have to win, but it's hard to win.
Come on, it
is.
You can't compete with certain schools, but things are changing. Your school, Alabama, you can't replace Nick Saban.
I will say this as an Alabama fan: they better not make the top 12, the playoff. They have 3 losses right now. They better not.
They might, but I
already saw an article of somebody that put them in at 12. I'm like, bullshit. Get them out of there.
Zander, you never reminded me of like the whole like pro SEC. It just means more crap. But don't you think it's funny how the teams that were just shitting on Indiana for weeks about, and look, I didn't disagree with them, but Indiana, they haven't played anybody. They don't deserve to be here. Blah, 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 blah. They get killed by Ohio State. It's like these SEC teams, they get their just dessert. And then all of a sudden, they get Indiana right back in it because Ole Miss and Texas A&M. And
I know everybody in the SEC loses. Yeah. Look, the SEC was great for a long time. They don't appear to be holding that up. And as John just mentioned, there's a new era of college football loading with everything that's going on in NIL and the expanded playoff, and so it's going to be interesting.
I love it. I love this 12-team playoff. I
like it too. I do think it gives more of an opportunity.
But Ohio State's a blue blood as well, and they are.
Michigan's a blue. Did you see how much Michigan's paying for that quarterback? It's going to be over like $4 million.
Yeah. It's tough to compete with. And Notre Dame, Army was a great story. And my God, I sat down, I go, this is an interesting game at Yankee Stadium. It's over like 2 minutes in. I don't know.
Yeah, Notre Dame, boy, they're pretty good this year. It'll be interesting to see what they can do.
It's honestly crazy how they lost to Northern Illinois at home. But hey, that's college football now. It's like the gap is. And you know what, Zander? It's funny. Like I was a proponent of expanding the playoffs since Penn State won the Big Ten and got screwed. And
I'm sure you've been a proponent of it for a while. I never had to beat Jeff because Alabama made it every year in the top 4.
But Nick Saban has always been one of my favorite coaches. Like that guy just found a way to win every
Well,
single year.
the new guy. He ain't no Nick Saban.
No,
no.
I feel bad for Caden DeBoer. Like
I don't feel bad for him at all. He needs to go back to the Big 12 or the Pac-12, wherever the hell he came from. He's not.
Yeah, well, the Pac. By the way,
Get the
John,
fuck outta
that was
here.
the highlight of my weekend. The Pac-2 championship game. Oregon State hits the
Pac-2.
Get that
Pac-2.
guy out of Alabama, man. All right, Jeff, we got to run, man. Appreciate you doing it. Good
Thanks,
stuff. We'll
bud.
talk to you next week.
Yeah, see you guys. Thanks.
You going to Baltimore? Get ready.
I
you
am.
know where the parking lot is.
Yeah, I'm the only one who apparently knows where it is. So, everybody make sure they're on time this week.
All
All right,
right.
little Jeff Kerr, Johnny
I'll
Mac
talk to you.
carpool going on. Good stuff. All right, Jeff, thank you, man.
Yep, see you guys.
Good stuff there from Jeff Kerr. Great to have him join us here on a big Saquon Barkley day. John, I got to get to a couple super chats, and then we'll get Chris Franklin up at 9:20. Looking forward to talking to Chris. Look, now I'm getting chirped, John. Now I'm just getting, hey, Zander, 24 Boomer Sooner. Dang, that might have been the most embarrassing loss. By
the way, I think I heard, which is pretty cool. I don't know, because I don't watch many games on TV, and when I do, I'm usually not paying attention. But I saw them announce the lineups. You know, like my lotto always says Jeff Stoutland University.
Yeah.
I believe I heard Jalen Hurts say "Roll Sooners," which I thought was cool.
Did he combine?
Can people confirm that or deny? Because that's what I heard.
Yeah, I watched. I didn't pick that up, but I guess that's a combination of the two schools where
I thought it was
people
pretty
think
cool.
Jalen's in Oklahoma. Jalen does still like Alabama. He graduated.
Oh no, he loves Alabama.
Yeah,
but he loves Oklahoma as well. That's
so
I thought it was.
As he should.
I thought it was cool.
Oklahoma prepared him for the NFL.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And I think, because why would I hear that? But that's what I wasn't paying attention, but I could have sworn that's what he said. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. This would be great. Chuck Hutton, I want a Notre Dame Miami playoff game. I love that. Big Sills will be going crazy. A little Catholics versus convicts again.
I don't. Well, that was great, but I don't think this year would be the same.
Well, no, it wouldn't, but it would still be fun to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know what to believe. Is Army really good? I don't know. But if they are,
they are Army, John. Their quarterback is
well,
can't really throw, but he can run.
That but they were, whatever. They were undefeated. They were beating people like a drum, and if they're any good, if they're legit, well, then Notre Dame's really good. But I don't know if they're legit.
Good stuff, John. You did confirm. He did say that. Many said he did say that. So that was cool. Cool. Good pickup by you. Let's read a couple super chats, then we'll get to a break for Chris Franklin. James Carver checking in. James, thank you, brother. I'd be asking Jeffrey how much he's willing to roll out for a half a season of Aaron Donald off the shelf. And for SEC people, they saw and know JD can play 2-3 along with JD in tight and mint fronts. It's going to be interesting.
He can play anything. Anybody can play anything, James. You can line up anybody anywhere. We're talking about effectiveness in the NFL.
Yeah.
He hasn't proved to be effectiveness. Of course he can line 2-eye, 4-eye, 3. All it is where you're lining up. Everybody can line up. I can line up there. I'm not going to be effective.
You sure?
That's
John?
what we're talking about.
Actually, Howie, give my man Johnny Mack a call. You need a guy on the line.
It's a young man's game, but yeah, I mean he's going to have to play those. He's going to play, more in 4-man fronts, and he's going to have to play more in obvious pass rushing situations if they want to kick Milton outside. Now, I still think Jalen Hunt's going to get the majority of the work, and hopefully it works out. So it might be here and there, but either way, other guys are going to have to step up, and some of them on the interior.
Good stuff, James. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you checking in. Brian Garner checks in. The Rodgers touchdown was a miscommunication from DeJean. DeJean went in motion, and halfway through, he realized Reed had it covered. It caused Rodgers to play more of an inside position. I didn't pick up on that, John. Did you see?
Well, I haven't rewatched the game yet, but yeah, I'll see later. But I mean, the Eagles' defense, I talk about it all the time. It's very complicated. Their coverage schemes. It may look like somebody gets beat, and they're not the ones getting beat. That's why it's so impressive that young players have been able to handle the communication aspect of it. They played that corn dog motion early where they seamlessly, CJ just pointed it out and they seamlessly picked it up. That's what they blew the Super Bowl with. They're just much more prepared this season when it comes to stuff like that. But he may be correct. But for all the Isaiah Rodgers people, and there's a lot of them for some period, look, he didn't have a good game. I mean, it's clear he didn't have a good game. Slay's better. I hate to break it to you. Significantly better, but he is a good backup. And, he gets beat occasionally. They tried to take advantage of him. They did on a couple against very good players. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I think he lost all his confidence. John, you talk about that all the time, how much confidence matters in this game. These guys are humans. A lot of times I think people forget that. These guys are human beings. There's
By
a
the
human
way,
element to every game.
Some of the Matthew Stafford throws, as bad as they played, unbelievable.
And that one to the sideline, I think it was on Slay when they called Slay for a PI, but they declined. That was an insane throw to Puka Nacua. That was absurd on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, the other team has players too. Even when you have better players, they still have good players.
Yeah, he puts it on the rope for sure, Matthew Stafford. Good stuff there. Brian Garner, thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. Mike Kravik says, I feel bad for BG. Me too. John, you think BG is going to come back here? I know he's been talking about this as the retirement tour.
I talked about it a little bit. I'm sure he wants to come back. He doesn't want to go out that way. But he mentioned it depends on the Eagles. At some point, you got to turn the page on everybody. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the industry. And they probably see this and they're going to say, "Well, we got to get younger. We got to." So I'm going to guess this is still going to be it. And you know what you brought up last night on the show, and I think you're right. If that's the last man, that he goes out on top because he played a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal year so far, John. Not even game two, but I mean, great year for him, man. At 36
tremendous
years
year overall, and he played. That might have been his best game of the year. I haven't seen the PFF grades yet, but that might have been his best game of the year. He dominated.
Yeah, and also it's harder to return off an injury like that. It's one thing to finish up the season and be like, oh, yeah, I'm ready to come back. It's another thing to have that type of injury and then try and come back at 36. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. C-Tay checks in. Nolan Smith is going to have a lot more production if he gets a bigger role. Got 6 games to prepare him for the playoffs. You're not wrong about that, John. What do you think about Nolan Smith? You think he can handle this?
Well, I think he is going to have more production. This is where you got to be careful. It's not about, he's going to play more, so his numbers are going to go up. Is he going to be effective in this? That's the key. He's played pretty well this season. He's been big improvement from year one, obviously. Is he ready to be playing really, really major snaps? I don't know. One of the things I said about that Rams front is kind of same thing you subscribe to Nolan Smith. People are going to see that, especially and see him on the field and say, well, he might look like Jared Burst occasionally generating pressure, but I'm also going to beat the you-know-what out of him if I got a big physical offensive line. So we'll see. Can he be effective? But his numbers are going to go up because he's going to play more.
Well, yeah, we'll see how they make up for the loss of BG and Bryce Huff. Look, I never thought I would be clamoring to get Bryce Huff back, John, based on the way he started. But boy, we need that guy right now. Jason E. Gates checks in. Great win last night, LFG Birds. So do we try and sign someone at DN or just roll with who we got?
There's nobody to sign. There's nobody of relevance to sign.
Yeah.
And that's not saying they'll probably bring in somebody.
Yeah, they're going to need a body. I mean, even if
it's just a practice. Yeah. But when I say there's nobody to sign, anybody meaningful, that's why I bring up the Dolphins and what happened to them last year. You can't just bring people off the street at this stage of the year and expect them to be meaningful contributors. They're on the street for a reason.
Yeah.
Unless you do go talk somebody out of retirement like Aaron Donald, who said that, James. Aaron Donald's an inside player. Yeah. I mean, And he's not gonna come out.
Fletch, are you out there? You want to come back so we can move Milton to the outside? Fletcher Cox, are you out there?
Fletcher's lost a lot of weight. That's another thing people don't,
He probably can't even do it anymore.
Yeah.
With how much weight he's lost. Philly Dom wanted the F-bomb, John, because he's the one who gave you the move Bond to the edge and played Trotter.
I think I did give an F-bomb, but yeah, no, come on. I like what? Why are you so high on Jeremiah Trotter Jr.?
Yeah, and you can't. You're getting all pro play right now at that linebacker position.
I mean,
you're going to kill two positions with one move.
And you're putting a 5th round pick out there at the expense of a 3rd round pick because you're moving the third to take away the 3rd. It doesn't make sense at any level. Maybe Jalix Hunt can do it. Let's give him a chance first.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then if he fails miserably, maybe, but you're not taking Zach Bond off. That's not to say they rushed him a couple times last night. That was part of their plan. He can do it, and he's more of a Van Ginkel type who can do both. But he's played an all-pro level at all-ball linebacker. I'm not shifting that completely. That would be not only a dereliction of duty from Vic Fangio, it would take away from one of his greatest accomplishments. He's the only one who saw the guy and said, nope, that's an all-ball linebacker. And he's right.
Let's hope Vic can get it right again with whatever he decides to do to make up for this loss. Jason A-Team checks in. What a game last night. The BG injury is heartbreaking. God bless him. He was so good. One of the best Eagles of all time. Barkley's still MVP, not close. Definitely the MVP right now with the Eagles with how it's played out.
I think he's the MVP of the NFL on Wednesday. Wednesday.
Well, John,
Monday,
last night,
November 25th.
I said Monday. Last night after you were off, and I wish this wasn't a reality, but it is a reality. You know what else helps Saquon? Doing it on prime time when everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Because there's a popularity element to this too.
Look, as an Eagles fan, I get why everybody wants him to be the MVP, and I think he would be the MVP today. At the end of the day, who gives a shit?
I don't care. No, I'm with you. I could care less about it. I mean, it would be cool.
If you win the Super Bowl, are you seriously going to be upset if Lamar Jackson wins another MVP or somebody else or Josh Allen wins the MVP? Who gives a shit about individual? And by the way, Saquon would be the first to tell you that. He got asked about MVP last week, and he said, I'm not thinking about that. And that's part of the reason why he's as great as he is, because he doesn't think about shit like that.
He's such a good pro, John, even after the game last night when he knew probably all the attention was on him. Everybody was waiting. He goes on social media when he gets out of there and tweets, how about that offense? How about
those? He's the most humble guy in the world.
Yeah.
That's why I get a kick out of, like, there are certain guys I like. Brandon Graham. I always say, everybody asks me, who's your favorite Eagle? Well, I always say either Glenn Fry, Don Henley, or Joe Walsh. That's my standard comeback for the band, the Eagles, because I don't care about, but I do care about rooting for people. And Brandon Graham is one of the best people you're ever going to meet. So that kind of stuff. And Saquon's in that level category. So freaking humble. And that explains his greatness. I kind of wrote about that as opposed to across the street. You can see generational talent, and I hate that term, but I'm using it, across the street at the Wells Fargo Center occasionally. But what true greatness is when you marry that with work ethic and tangible stuff. And Saquon's got all of that in spades. And yeah, so for people who think I don't like Saquon Barkley, you couldn't be further off the beaten path. I just tell you the truth and what I think is going to happen. And I was wrong. I didn't see this impact. I got no problem admitting that.
Yeah, no doubt. Chris, we're going to get to you in just a minute, man. We appreciate you checking in this morning. Two more super chats and real quick, we'll get to Chris. Philly Dunn, I didn't mean use him all the time, but they could move him out there on occasion during the game.
They already move him out there on occasion. I mean,
so maybe it's an increased role somewhat. We'll see.
Yeah.
J5 gives an interesting take too. J5, appreciate it, man. We can also have a look with Sidney Brown in the box and Bond on the edge. We can play man end zone. John, what do you think of that?
I admire the pretzel twisting.
Yeah.
Well,
They're trying to get creative.
They play a shitload of zone to begin with, and that indication you're doing the same thing. You're essentially playing Zach on the edge, moving away from where he's playing an all-pro, and you're playing a safety at linebacker. Can work. Josh Metellus does it every week with Brian Flores' defense. Yeah, I don't see it happening.
Good stuff. Let's get to a break real quick, and we'll get to Chris Franklin. Let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out right now, betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa, and use the promo code on your screen. It's YouTube150. It gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be back in 3 minutes with Chris Franklin on the other side.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365, joined now by Chris Franklin, who's working on the camera. Chris, we appreciate you checking in after a long Sunday night game where Saquon Barkley dominated the headlines. Brandon Graham is out. Birds winners of 7 straight and now 9-2 on the year. Welcome to the show, Chris Franklin. How you doing on this Monday morning?
Just going. Just kidding. I was like, gotta love those late games, but no, it's not good. It's worth it though because you got to saw history, so that's what made it even better.
There you go.
It is, man. Nine games where 255 yards or more. Obviously, the Eagles have been around for 9 decades. They've never seen a performance like that in franchise history. One of the most. I said today, Chris, if they took the vote today, Saquon Barkley would be the MVP, I believe, of the NFL. And I still say, yeah, but that offensive line. I'm like Nick. Nick brought it up. My God, they're good. My God, they're good.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't so much just what they did, not only the power and the way they were able to knock the Rams off the defensive line, like sometimes 2, 3 yards downfield, five, sometimes in some cases. I think it was the way they were able to adjust because when you look at the way the Rams came out and they were trying to, the way they were trying to attack them, they were trying to do what the Commanders did, try to put as many guys as the line of scrimmage to try to break through. Yeah, once you got past them, once they figured that out, it was game over for them. And listen, when you look at that Rams team, that defensive line with Verse and everybody else, they're really, really good. But
they're
the
really
way
good, but they're really undersized, Chris.
Yep.
I mentioned that coming into the game, and I'm like, I don't know. I think styles make fights, and they don't match up well with this Eagles offensive line. It's rare, but I got one right.
Yeah, he's undersized, but I'll give Verse credit. He did something I've never seen, and that's completely destroy Jordan. I've never seen Mailata get hit like that. He got whether I know people were talking about whether he jumped a little early, but he wrecked Mailata on that play. That was impressive.
I'll do something what the official should have done before that game. Offsides, defense, whatever they want to do, because you see right because if you get the guy in the right spot, like it ain't got person. If you get the right leverage on there, you can push him back that way. But he was kind of offside. So.
And by the way, it probably cost Jared Burrs because we haven't. I don't know about you, but I haven't rewatched the game. When I rewatched the game, see the all 22, I bet you they beat the crap out of Jared Burrs for the rest of that game. For getting a little bit of a hit on Jordan Mailata, but overall, I mean, and I really think if you go all the way back to the draft, Chris, if Troy Boltanu fell to the Eagles, I think they were going to take him at 2022. So the 22, not 2020. At 22 overall. So the impact of that is twofold. One, you don't have Quinyon Mitchell, who's been arguably the defensive rookie of the year. But B, you don't have Mekhi Becton. Howie gets a lot of crap for the Bryce Huff signing, although the Eagles need Bryce Huff badly. We're going to talk about Brandon in a second. Mekhi Becton has been great at guard. Great. This big physical presence. He had the big block on Saquon's second touchdown run. He's the final piece of the puzzle. They were already great. And now you got this massive guy who can block out the sun, and you're even more physical. How good is that signing?
Yeah, it is good. And then another domino is, like you mentioned beforehand, 99 Quinyon Mitchell. Then I think teams know you're desperate to try to get a cornerback, and maybe you don't have an extra draft pick. The Commanders trying to fleece you for that too. So you got that in there. But yeah, he's a guy. I know we talk so much about Zach Bond and the contract he's going to get. He's a guy who's making himself a lot of money as well too. A lot.
Yeah.
And this point where you're like, oh, this is good. But he's been. I had questions about how quickly if he was going to be as good as he could be on that right guard spot. And he's answered all of them. I think he's learned the whole leverage, the whole way of playing in that tight space. I was worried about such a bigger body. Does he affect the quarterback when he's throwing? Is able to move out? He's been playing well, and then see the confidence he's starting to gain more and more as it goes along, and to the point where you're like, he might be in this conversation for one of the better right guards, like one Pro Bowl spot. He's played that well.
I know.
I don't know if he's going to get it or not, but for at least for the rest of this regular season in the playoffs now, I think you got to enjoy what you have from that right side, and him. It also helps that you have a Lane that was able to help him, got him along too. So they're in a good spot along that whole entire offensive line, and it's a way for them to add having the guy that size and his speed and the quickness. And I like his nastiness. I mean, I remember earlier in camp when he pushed one of his teammates aside when doing a drill with one arm. The fact you have another guy like Mailata, like Johnson, Dickerson, even Cam Jurgens, he shows a lot too with that bully mentality. Big thing.
Chris, you think there's a real legitimate shot Saquon could be an MVP player this year in the league?
As long as Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or any other guys we see in the commercials that are around. I know Saquon's got a commercial. I think there's.
He's getting his own commercials. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, starting to get
KFC
him now.
commercial? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Uber Eats, John, or
Yeah.
something.
I don't think Saquon eats KFC either, but
no, he does not.
Because as long as it's the quarterbacks are going to get him as much as unless he beats Dickerson's record. I think if he beats the rushing record, I think there's a legit shot.
I think he's got a shot, but yeah, I mean,
what's the record? So 2,100? Is that what it is?
2146, 2104. One of those things, 204.
Yeah.
And outside, so he has to go
even if he gets to 2,000, which he's got a legitimate shot at, he's got a chance, depending on, how Josh Allen and Lamar finish. If the quarterbacks finish well, the quarterback's going to win. It's become a quarterback award, unfortunately. But I think he's got a really good chance because it's a quarterback award first, but it's a statistic-based award second, and he's got all the stats you need to be deep in the conversation. But I don't think the Eagles care. I don't think Saquon cares because their goal is about winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And this is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But boy, I got to tell you, Chris, the biggest thing that can derail you, Doug Peterson used to talk about this. It's not injuries. It's multiple injuries at the same position. The Eagles now have multiple injuries at the same position. Edge rusher, Bryce Hop, maybe they get him back at the end of the year. Maybe they don't, but he's not going to be back soon. And now Brandon Graham out for the year. And by the way, what a game Brandon Graham played. What a game at 36. That's a big injury, Chris Franklin.
Yeah, and you look at the way, like it's arguably to me, I'm not to say this because they happened. I think he was the most consistent defensive edge rusher they had all season.
Oh yeah,
and that's even with Josh Sweat coming along, who we saw him had something. He was dealing with something with his ankle or foot or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he was getting something looked down there. So it's rough because there wasn't that many guys available when it happened as a free agent. Because I remember the trade, like, yeah, you'd have to give up something like Darius Smith, but we all knew he was pretty much going to the Lions, what have you. Brandon, I look at the way not only that Brandon Graham was able to play on the field, I think the biggest impact from you all, because you see, it's not only the way that he was playing. You look at the way guys like Nolan Smith were going to him beforehand, before the injury, before needing somebody like some whatever info or motivation, what have you. So not only do you lose that edge rushing speed, that quickness, what have you, to press the quarterback. Now you got that. I know, say what you want about Bryce Huff too. We should say he just was flat out stunk for most of the year in terms of that. But you're hoping it's almost one of the things like, can you trust Bryce Huff? And I don't know. So I'm thinking about maybe do you take away some of those, not all, but some of those pass rushing packages, blitz packages, and move Vaughn back over to the edge. If you did that. But I think also I wouldn't be surprised if you say you put Milton, you want to put your best guys
Milton,
on the line.
That's where I am. Milton.
Kick him out. I think he's still, because I'm worried about the wall when it comes to Alex Hunt. As much as they say they're trying to do that, kick Milton out. Maybe use Thomas Booker, a guy who's a little bit lighter. Maybe use him on the edge, a little bit quicker as well too. But or maybe here's a weird one. Maybe you make a call out to some of these guys, like say, hey Fletch, what are you doing? You want to play D tackle and try to move Milton out there full? I don't know. There's too many different scenarios to go to, and I just hope it's nothing like, okay, we saw. I don't think Teron Jackson's going to get much. As much as I like Teron as a person, I don't know if they're going to elevate him and give him so much run.
Oh, Sean Mathis. He's the new guy, by the way.
Yeah. For how long? Because we know how much they turn that practice squad.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Teron Jackson. I mean, Philly Don puts it in. Ray Diddy said a name to keep in mind is Teron Jackson. I've seen his name all over. You guys have seen more of him than I have. I don't know if he'll be any type of player that could take some snaps on this team.
Well, he's on the practice squad. They know him, so
Yeah, he played well enough. I mean, Carolina took a flyer. I think Carolina's taking a flyer on everybody earlier this year. Took a flyer on him, but he's familiar with the system. He's been on there for a while. He's been around that team for a while. He's been a practice squad or active roster. He's a former draft pick. If you need a
I
depth
think he was
guy,
a
yeah,
sixth rounder, wasn't it? I think he was a sixth
Sixth
rounder in
round pick,
21.
yeah.
Yeah.
Chanticleer.
Patrick
Yeah, he's
Johnson
one of
was a
those guys.
7th rounder. Patrick
And
ended up being. It would have been nice if they were able to keep Patrick Johnson.
that was the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That was the one where I think they were trying to make some moves for some guys. That's the
Yeah.
one you look back now. It's
Boy,
not-
I sit there and I watch every week, and I love Nick Gates. I love Darian Kennard. You're not going to cut Trevor Keegan as a rookie. You got 3 offensive linemen that are inactive. You've lost Patrick Johnson. You've lost Jack Stoll. That's a legitimate criticism of Howie Roseman at this point. I mean,
But-
what is his fear of losing these guys?
the offensive line depth. And I know we talk about so, and it goes back to I think it's a downhill thing because I think once you lost McMullen, you didn't have another center just in case. So you had to keep some of those guys. You had to keep like Gates and around in there, and you look at that. Like I can see some of the tag. Like Keegan, you know, can only play. Well, he's learning to tackle, but he's mostly a guard, so you can't really do that. You don't want to give up on him because you think you can fill in for the future. Because he's a guy you got to look at in case you lose Becton. So it's one of those, it's Casey. It's Johnson reminded me a lot of the Casey Suhill thing from a couple of years ago. Where he was a guy. He's a very productive guy who, like, he's young, and now you're looking back and like, ugh, you know, there's not a lot, and that's the thing. I know. I know how much they try to use the practice squad and try to keep some of these guys, and you don't want to lose that depth at offensive on an offensive line because we've seen how important it is over time. But yeah, I think as much as this team puts a lot on on the line of scrimmage, they should do some things with the defensive line and the edge rusher, and one of them, especially if that's one of the areas of concern that you have beforehand. It's a rough thing to do with. You don't go in like, I'm going to get these guys injured, so I'm going to get these guys. I want to worry about 53.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. Yeah, you can't. My only point is, you know, veteran players like Nick and even Kennard, who's played a little bit. I don't know. Like, they're not. I get it for long term and how he's weighing those two things. And if you think somebody could be something long term versus a role player like a Jack Stoll or a Patrick Johnson, but they're going to help you like right now, and you're a Super Bowl team. I don't know. That's a difficult formula, but those were contributors to the team, legitimate contributors that they lost because they're worried about guys who aren't playing right now. And I thought the goal was the Super Bowl. So I think it's a legitimate criticism, maybe some nitpicking, but because what happens, by the way, Chris, when CJ Uzama's elevations run out, then you're going to add a tight end anyway, whether it's Uzama or EJ Jenkins, because his practice squad elevations are already expired. Then you have to cut somebody anyway. And he ended up losing Jack Stoll.
Or we get our dream and we get to see Tyler Steen at tight end, and then we get to see a big man touchdown. Just saying.
Well, maybe.
They haven't once already. So that's why you're right. Yeah.
And Howie's probably listening to this. No, he's probably not. But he's probably listening to say, fuck McMullen. I'm going to keep these guys. But I think it's a legitimate criticism, man, because these guys, Patrick Johnson was a meaningful part of this team. And, you know, special teams, one of their best special teams players, a good backup edge rusher, and voila, they need a good backup edge rusher right now. And they don't really have one.
Yeah, so I think we'll see. I know it's especially with going against some. Well, Vic Fangio's earned it, like especially this season with the job he's done with these guys.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the things where you see like, all right, let's test some things out. And I think we may see some more blitzing too, because these guys are getting worn out. You can't have Alex Hunt, Nolan Smith, and even Josh Sweat the way they're playing. They play well. You can't have them out there for like 60 some snaps because they're not going to be as effective. So I think we're going to start seeing a little bit an uptick. Not all the time, but I think you'll start seeing the uptick of the blitz. And you sure hope that when you face some of these veteran quarterbacks, i.e. Lamar, like this, of all weeks, to lose Brandon Graham
I
against Lamar
know.
Jackson
Yeah.
on that contain. Yeah, not optimal in terms of that.
Because as impressive as those Rams young defensive front people are, they were not disciplined, and they lost contain on Jalen Hurts a bunch.
Yeah, that verse did that a couple times, John, where he tried to rush like a madman, and Jalen just easily stepped up and made him pay.
Yeah.
And
Brandon is very fundamentally sound, and he's gonna do his job. It's a big loss. It really is. And maybe even bigger, as Chris mentioned, off the field, because he's the thermostat of that entire freaking locker room. And I mean that. The entire organization. I've never met a bigger energy guy in my life, Chris Franklin. Ever.
That dude was he's I'll say he's like some of the stuff like the interactions we all have with him in the locker room, that the way that everybody wants to talk to him, like he'll go from whether it's the equipment manager, whether it's the janitorial staff, or whether it's even like it's us to his teammates all the way up through. You can't find one person that would probably say something bad about him, because he's just that energy. You need a high motor guy. You need at least one of those guys there. And you try to look around to see who could fill that role. I mean, he's going to be on the sideline, barring his cast, like say because he has a surgery on Friday. For that one. So he's going to be on the sideline. But it's different when you're on the field, when you're in that huddle, when you need somebody who's been there before, who's won it, who knows what it takes on that field, and reading that stuff. And I'm trying to think of like who could take over in terms of that. Maybe this is a time where you've been preparing the Kobe Dean to be that middle order guy.
The Kobe's the guy. Yeah, he's a leader.
He's playing really good right now too, Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, he is. The way he's just seeing the field so much better, and the fact he remained healthy, that's helped him out a lot. Maybe
you get him running downhill too, Chris. He's pretty powerful for an undersized linebacker. He's
not undersized anymore. You can't say that. He really, when that was the silver lining, Chris, of his foot injuries. He came back. He's a monster in the upper body now. I guess he couldn't work out his lower body, so he was just he's short. I used to say the same thing about Darren Sproles, a running back. Now, Darren was really short. But when people would say Darren Sproles is undersized, he's not undersized. He's short. He was maybe the most powerful Eagles pound for pound when he was here in the weight room. He was a monster. And that's sort of like Nakobe. Now, he should not to that degree, but he's short, but he's not. He really bulked up in the offseason.
No, yeah, he did. I mean, BG is also kind of short, isn't he, John? I mean, he's a little
he's short,
a little short, but he's a stocky dude. He's not small.
Yeah, he's very stocky.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you look at him, it's in a way he's a lot like London Fletcher that terms, and he's a way he's. We always know he knows he's going to be able to read what the offense is trying to do. He's filling it. The way I think that you look at it, not only the upper part of the body, he knows how to use that leverage, and the fact that you see him in goes in those places against those sitters and those guards, he's able to dip underneath and then explode up top. It's to the point where you're like, okay, he gets his power, or there he just blows right by him. So he's got the power move, he's got the speed move, and trying to do that. He's effective.
Yeah, he ran him. I don't think I've seen more people get run over in an NFL game. He ran over Kyron Williams on the one blitz. Zander pointed out, I think Jared Verse was offside too, but Jordan Mailata was the rare instance where he was knocked over. There were a bunch of people getting run over last night. And that the offense, Landon Dickerson got the 2-for-1.
Oh my
first
God.
touchdown, right?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the penalty on him, the late hit.
No.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Call.
Well, that's a nice NBA flop. That's a good job by the Rams guy.
Hey, you're right. Yeah.
If it works, flop.
Chris, last question for me, man. lot of talk we've had all year on this show and many other shows in the region about the offense and can they win versus the better teams with the running offense, and will Jalen be able to make the throws when he needs to make the throws? Has your thought process evolved on what this offense is? I think it's clear what they are. I mean, even AJ Brown was asked last night on the postgame show on the set for Sunday Night Football. You're a running team. How do you manage that as a star wide receiver? I think it's clear what the team is right now. You think they can win with this late in the year? I'm talking about reach their goals with this style of play, physical running game, manage the passing game, 170-something yards last night, so not a huge passing game. Can they win with this, Chris Franklin?
I think they can because what's old is new. I think a lot of times so many teams we're worried about the passing game going to 3-4, having 3, 4, 5 defensive backs they can use to cover it up. So that way you have these shorter guys. It's almost a way that you just go back and go, you know what? Let's just pound them in and just run over them. And I think we're seeing that now with this team in terms of that. And the thing is, you can maximize your play action. Once you maximize your play action, try to go deep and take your shots and if Jalen puts the ball in a good spot, especially in those areas, he's going to find. Last night was probably the second best game, if not the best, probably the second or third best game I've seen him do because he was so decisive with the ball. He was able to put the ball in the right window, and you had that run game right. The way that the run game and the pass game is feeding off each other, that balance that we've been trying to we wanted to see last year, the threat of the run, at least that balance that you're seeing now is making it an offense that's unpredictable. When you have unpredictable offense that's not in third and longs forever, if they don't commit penalties such as the offensive offsides, what's going on with that? But you do all the stuff like that for it. Don't shoot themselves in the foot. You got that balance, and that's what keeps in them.
Yeah, they had 3 penalties on that drive, by the way, Chris. I forgot to bring up Nick Sirianni's goopy end of the half stuff, too. I still can't figure that out. Why after the sack, why aren't you calling a timeout? He lets the clock run, then he calls timeout with 33 seconds left. And
did he just get caught up in the moment there, John, and like almost brain fart, forgot to call a timeout there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like if you want the ball, you call timeout when it's 3rd and 12, and you say, all right, we're getting the ball back. We're getting off the field. You got a minute 12, minute 10, somewhere in that range when they punt the ball. Instead, he let him run another play with the clock running, and they were down at 33 seconds, and he's still trying to score. Well, if you're trying to score, why not call timeout? And then the 7 seconds at the end of the half, what the hell was that? You gotta run that off.
Yeah, I don't get the quarterback run call on that one, and I think especially given Jake's struggles from deep, I understand why not to go at that time. Especially the first half, because he didn't block. We saw what happened before he tried to field goal before he got blocked, and they returned it back, give him momentum. So, yeah, there's questions, and there's some questions with that.
Doesn't matter because they won, though, so nobody cares. But I'd like to bring it up. At C. Franklin News, make sure you follow Chris on the X platform. NJ.com is where you can read him. Does a tremendous job. I see the Boss Cops bag, Chris. You already Christmas shopping? Is that my gift?
See the thing. I'm sorry. I give you guys the gift of smile, and what was it? It South Park. The gift of song. The gift. Yeah, right now.
Chris, your
I just forgot to clear that out before
me,
I don't have any commercial deals or anything. I just forgot to take that bag out the shop before I throw it out. I'm so used to being outside. I was like, oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, it's too cold.
So
it's too cold.
Yeah,
it's too chilly this morning.
All right, buddy.
All right, Chris. Thanks for checking in, man. We appreciate it, brother.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one. Good stuff there from Chris Franklin here on Birds 365. A big win last night, everybody, on Sunday Night Football. Birds are now winners of 7 straight games. They went 37-20 last night.
7 straight. All is right in Eagles land. Hey, by the way, it's the Battle of Harbaughs. I should have mentioned that tonight.
Oh, yeah. Pretty good.
The Ravens are playing Monday night, so they get a short week. And they're playing in Los Angeles.
I know.
And they got to come back. So
Birds get an extra day on them.
That should help the Eagles a little bit as well. Not that it's a long trip, but maybe they can even find the parking lot. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's very difficult in Baltimore. Get some signs, Baltimore.
Yeah. We got a couple more super chats, John, here on the way out. Suo Blaze says, I missed his super. Suo, I apologize for missing it, brother. Johnny Mac's going to love this one. Okay, ready? Suo checks in. Saquon is the best player in the league next to Lamar, and there's no debate. What
Well,
say you, Johnny Mac?
well, anybody who says there's no debate about anything is closed-minded. Yeah, there's a debate. Yeah, he's not the second best player in the league. He's having a great year. I don't know why people need. Same thing with Quinn. Quignon's the best corner. No, he's not. Do you want to be lied to? I say it all the time. I mean, he's having a great year. He's having a phenomenal year
for me on how good he is.
Enjoy it. He's having a phenomenal year. You know, you're going to see a number of players over the next couple weeks. You're going to see Lamar Jackson. You're going to see TJ Watt. You've already gotten to see Myles Garrett. He's on a bad team. He's a better player at his pure position, and nobody would dispute it in the NFL. Nobody would dispute that. Nobody, including Saquon Barkley. Doesn't always have to be the best. Having a great historic game, great season, may even be the MVP. Who cares? I think the goal is the Super Bowl.
It is. It is. And I think he has added an element to this team that makes them ripe to return to the Super Bowl. We will see.
Great fit. That's point. Great fit for the Eagles. Howie deserves credit for that one. You know, for all the people that give him shit about Bryce Huff, well, you got to give him credit for Saquon. You got to give him credit for Mekhi Becton. That was a phenomenal signing.
Yeah, really.
Zach Bond may be the best signing of it all based on money.
Yeah. Howie did some really good things this offseason. There's no doubt about that. He deserves some credit for sure. One more super chat here. Prince says, Saquon came out of the locker room for the second half like mustard. Turn TV off. That's 2 jerseys, Big Z. Big Z mustard. What's his mustard? I think it's his new song. Is there a song or something? I don't get the mustard, but I keep seeing it all over my feeds. I don't know what it means. Somebody's got to alert me to what mustard.
Now, I get everybody's focus. So why isn't Landon Dickerson much? Because he's the one who's gets the double block. Why don't you give Big Lando some credit? Why don't you give the big guy some love?
Landon does deserve some credit. Kendrick Lamar, I guess it's a Kendrick. Is it a song? Is that what it is? I don't know.
Give Lando some credit.
John wants to give Lando some mustard. I'm not sure if mustard applies in that in what John's talking about. But
yeah, he came out. But no, I'm only pointing out to you, he came out of the locker room. He came out of the locker room and followed Landon Dickerson. That's what he did. He followed Landon Dickerson 70 yards to pay dirt.
Yeah, no doubt. Saquon had a big day though, man. Unbelievable.
He had an historic day. Historic.
Really freaking good, man. I know we were going at it on the post-game show, but holy shit, I love watching this dude, man. He's unbelievable to watch. And I know the offensive line deserves a lot of credit. I don't disagree with you about
it's boring. That, I get it. People don't care about offensive line.
No, I go all the way back to when I care, but the way Saquon hits that hole, I think he's just a next
that was Howie's greatest quote. I always go back to it. People play it all the time. That's how we roll. When everybody's bitching about taking Cam Jurgens, he said, that's how we roll. We're always, when it's even, we're always taking the offensive lineman or defensive lineman. When he's talking about the draft. When it's even, we're always taking that's how we roll, and that's how they do roll.
Yeah, well, it worked out with him for sure. Landon Dickerson. Love Landon Dickerson. One more. Suo's trying to piss you off on the way out, John. He said, it's not closed-minded, it's facts. Saquon single-handedly won us 6 games. Without him, we're 5-4.
Yeah, I would say Sua doesn't know what a fact is. That's your opinion. How about the big drop pass? You could be 10-1. How about that one, Sua? Could be 10-1. By the way, they were
John.
By the way, they were 10-1 last year. They were 10-1 the year before, 2022. Were they 10-1? I think they were 10-1.
Yeah, they were 10-1.
Yeah,
they're 19-3 in the last 2 years of their first 10 games of the year,
Yeah.
first 11 games. Of the
Yeah,
year.
this ain't abnormal for the Eagles.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It is. It's impressive what they're doing. Sue, I'm happy you took a couple shots at John because I gave him enough shots last night. I had to take the day. I didn't want to give John any.
Nah, it's fine. I
didn't
just
wanna
don't
throw
like.
any
I don't
headaches.
like. I don't like the hyperbole. You know me. I'm not
No, I get
playing
it.
characters. I'm not telling. I'm not blowing smoke up people's ass. You know,
I thought Saquon was a great player, John. I'm not even playing the role.
He is a great
he's
player.
unreal.
He is a great player.
He's
The
blown me away.
only thing I took issue with you yesterday was he was the best player in the end. That is a ludicrous statement. That is a ludicrous statement.
Outside of quarterbacks, I think he is this year. Now I know there's offensive linemen and stuff like that.
Oh my God! Well, they don't count.
No, they do, but
On his own poor shitty team, he knows he's not the best player. That's Dexter Lawrence. I mean, there's so many great players in the NFL. Just because fans don't recognize them,
give me
doesn't
Barkley
mean they
over
don't
any
exist.
fucking running back in the league, John. Any back in the league, give me Barkley.
Well, this year, yeah, certainly. I mean, you can make an argument for Derrick Henry, but certainly, I would take Saquon for this team because he's
team for sure. Yeah,
as amazing as Derrick Henry is, and his speed is unbelievable for his size.
Yeah, it is.
But I would take Saquon for Howie was right. He's a perfect fit for this team. Yeah, he's having a great year, but he's not the best player in the NFL. That's not controversial. That's not even whoever said that's not a debate. That's not a debate for anybody in this league. That is not a debate.
Saquon Barkley, baby. I fucking love it.
That's fine. Everybody could like. He's having a great.
He is dominating. No, look, I hear what you're saying.
Miles Garrett exists. He exists.
You know who you don't mention, John? I'll take one more shot at you on the way out the door. You don't mention when you say those names. You never mention Micah Parsons. So you tell me all the time is generational.
Micah Parsons is great. Great. You act like Micah Parsons is nothing.
Oh, no,
the Cowboys.
I say he's not generational.
The Cowboys are a terrible team when he's not out there, and when he's out there, you're like, oh, geez. You saw him play against the Eagles. The Eagles win the game. They couldn't block Micah Parsons.
He's not generational.
They couldn't block him. I know they can't block Myles Garrett. They know they can't block Myles Garrett.
Yeah, there's two guys I think that are generational, and that's Garrett and that's TJ Watt right now. But anyway, I digress. I'm not going to get into that right now. John, great show, man. We got only 164 likes. Are you kidding me, people? We need to get more likes for Saquon Barkley and for
you should have blown some more smoke up their ass today.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I don't like to do that to the people. I try and always keep it honest and cool. One more from Suo on the way out. So when C-Mac does it, he's the best player in the league. Should have won MVP.
I've never said Christian McCaffrey was the best player in the league. Never remotely came close to saying Christian McCaffrey. Is Saquon
a better running back than Christian McCaffrey?
Not overall. This year? Yeah. I mean, he's been hurt all year. Through their careers? Are we really going to have that debate? Again, that's fucking ludicrous. So you're a slave to the moment?
Give me fucking Saquon.
The guy's been in Europe getting freaking experimental blood circulate. Yeah, he's kind of beat up. Yes, Saquon's better. To call their careers, I mean, come on. What are we doing? Why you gotta upset me on the way out? What
I'm sorry,
John. Why do people have to? So he has an historic game, one of the greatest games in NFL history, and the 6 years prior don't matter.
Well, he was on the fucking Giants. How much can I blame him for that? That team is so bad.
But we're saying he's had a better career than Christian McCaffrey. I mean,
Well,
it's
no, he's
just,
obviously not, but they've had different careers. I mean, that's how it is. Now
yes.
that you see them both with a great team, you saw what C-Mac did. You see what Saquon's doing. I like.
Well,
Saquon.
Myles Garrett's with a bad team this year, and everybody knows how fucking good Myles Garrett is.
Yeah, but that's a different position. I mean, you as a running back, you got to have a decent offensive line to even have a chance in the NFL.
Well, the only, as I said, and that's how the only thing I took issue with, it's not that he's the best running back this year, not that he even might deserve to be the MVP this year. The only issue is he's the best player in the world.
What about best player in the Eagles? Because that's what I think for sure.
I already told you the best player on the Eagles. So.
You like AJ?
I got multiple people in the building that won't debate that.
John, great show today. I'm feeling a little woozy here. My Whoop, this fitness thing I wear that tells me in my sleep. These are the days I don't like to wear these things because it just reminds you should be tired. It says I'm on 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm like, holy shit.
Nice.
Good stuff, though. I love it. John, great show today, man. We will talk to you tomorrow on a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. Going to be a different week, everybody, with Thanksgiving, obviously, on Thursday. So we're probably not going to do a full show there, John, on Thursday. I have to figure out what the Thanksgiving schedule is. Might do like a 30-minute hit with you and a 30-minute with. So I have to figure out what we're doing on Thanksgiving. We'll do something for content, but probably not going to be live on that full day. So we will see how it all plays out. John, great show today, my man. I will talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365. All right, brother?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.